On my 47th birthday, they handed me a cake that said, "Congrats on reaching 300 pounds." My sister toasted, "To the family disappointment." Everyone laughed, even my mom. I took photos, grilled steaks, and smiled through it. That night, I cleared out the savings account they all depend on. I, 47M, walked into what I thought would be a celebration of another year of life, only to find myself the centerpiece of the cruelest joke my family had ever orchestrated. The living room was decorated with balloons and streamers, and there in the center sat a cake that made my stomach drop. Instead of "Happy 47th birthday," it read, "Congrats on reaching 300 pounds," in bright red frosting. My sister held up her wine glass with that smirk I'd grown to hate over the years. She announced a toast to the family disappointment, and the room erupted in laughter. My mother, who I'd supported financially for the past 8 years, laughed the loudest. My brother doubled over, pointing at the cake like it was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. Even my teenage nieces were giggling behind their phones, probably already posting this humiliation on social media. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, processing the scene. These were the people I'd sacrificed everything for. The same family I'd bailed out of financial disasters, paid medical bills for, and covered rent when they couldn't make ends meet. My salary as a software engineer had become their safety net, and this was how they repaid my generosity. But I didn't storm out. I didn't scream or throw the cake against the wall like every fiber of my being wanted to. Instead, I smiled. I thanked them for the surprise and asked my sister to take photos of me with the offensive cake. She was thrilled to oblige, thinking she was capturing my humiliation for posterity. What she was actually documenting was evidence. I went to the kitchen and started grilling steaks like nothing had happened. My family continued their jokes throughout dinner, making comments about portion sizes and asking if I needed help carrying my plate. Each comment was another nail in their financial coffin, though they had no idea what was coming. That evening, after everyone had gone home with their stomachs full of food I'd paid for, I sat at my computer and began the most satisfying financial restructuring of my life. The joint savings account that held my emergency fund, the one my family knew they could rely on in tough times, was about to become significantly lighter. I'd been the family ATM for nearly a decade. When my mother's roof needed repairs after the storm 2 years ago, I covered the $8,000 bill. When my brother lost his job and couldn't make his car payments, I stepped in for 6 months. My sister's divorce left her struggling with legal fees, and guess who helped her retain the better attorney? Every family vacation, every medical emergency, every financial crisis had one common solution: my bank account. The joint account contained $47,000 of my money. Money I'd saved by living modestly while they lived beyond their means, knowing I'd always be there to catch them when they fell. But after tonight's performance, I realized they didn't see me as generous or reliable. They saw me as a joke, a walking punchline whose only value was financial. I transferred every penny into a new account they couldn't access. Then I went online and canceled the credit cards where I'd added them as authorized users. My mother's card for groceries and gas, my brother's card for emergencies, my sister's card for her kids' school expenses, all deactivated with a few clicks. But I wasn't done. I pulled out my phone and began documenting everything. I photographed the cake, saved the pictures my sister had taken, and started a detailed spreadsheet of every dollar I'd given them over the years. The receipts were all there in my email and bank statements. $47,000 in the savings account, but over the past 8 years, I'd given them nearly $200,000 in various forms of support. The next morning brought the first wave of panic calls. My mother tried to buy groceries, and her card was declined. She called me in confusion, asking if there was some kind of banking error. I told her I'd look into it, and hung up. 20 minutes later, my brother called with the same issue at a gas station. Then my sister discovered her card wasn't working when she tried to pay for her daughter's soccer registration. I let them marinate in confusion for the entire weekend. On Monday morning, I sent a group text with the photos from my birthday party attached. The message was simple: "These pictures perfectly capture how you see me, so I've decided to embrace your perspective. Since I'm such a disappointment, you surely won't want to depend on someone so unreliable for financial support anymore." The responses came immediately. My mother called it a misunderstanding, claiming they were just joking around. My sister said I was being too sensitive and couldn't take a joke. My brother accused me of holding money over their heads like some kind of dictator. Their attempts at damage control were pathetic and desperate. I explained that this wasn't about the money itself, but about respect. For 8 years, I'd been their financial safety net while they treated me like a walking joke. The cake wasn't a harmless prank. It was a public humiliation orchestrated by people who were supposed to love me. The laughter wasn't good-natured family teasing. It was genuine mockery of someone they saw as beneath them. My sister showed up at my house that evening, switching between angry demands and tearful apologies. She needed money for her daughter's school trip, something she'd been counting on me to cover. When I refused, she called me petty and vindictive. She couldn't understand why I was letting one stupid joke destroy our family relationships. I reminded her that she was the one who toasted to the family disappointment while everyone laughed. She'd orchestrated the cake, organized the humiliation, and made sure it was all photographed for maximum embarrassment. This wasn't one stupid joke. It was the culmination of years of them taking my generosity for granted while treating me like garbage. The family dynamics shifted rapidly once they realized I was serious. My mother, who hadn't worked in 5 years and depended on my monthly contributions for her mortgage, suddenly became very interested in my feelings and well-being. She started calling daily, asking about my health and suggesting we spend more time together. The concern was transparently fake, but I let her perform her act while my bank account remained firmly closed to her. My brother tried a different approach, appealing to family loyalty and shared history. He reminded me of all the times we'd supported each other growing up, conveniently forgetting that the support had been entirely one-directional for the past decade. When emotional manipulation failed, he resorted to anger, accusing me of abandoning the family over hurt feelings. 3 weeks into my financial embargo, the real consequences began showing. My mother's mortgage payment was late for the first time in years. My sister had to tell her daughter she couldn't go on the school trip. My brother's credit card bills, which he'd been juggling with minimum payments while relying on my emergency funds, were spiraling out of control. They organized an intervention, showing up at my house with prepared speeches about forgiveness and family bonds. My mother had obviously been crying before they arrived, and my sister brought her daughters to maximize the guilt factor. They sat in my living room, the same room where they'd humiliated me a month earlier, and begged me to restore their financial lifeline. I listened to their pleas with the same forced smile I'd worn during my birthday dinner. When they finished their performance, I pulled out my laptop and showed them the spreadsheet I'd created. Column by column, I walked them through 8 years of financial support. The numbers were staggering, even to me when laid out so clearly. $200,000 I'd given them, not including the joint savings account they'd always known they could tap in emergencies. Money for cars, homes, medical bills, vacations, legal fees, and countless smaller expenses that had become routine. I'd lived in the same modest apartment for 10 years, driving a 7-year-old Honda, while they upgraded their lifestyles with my generosity. The room grew quiet as the magnitude of their dependence became clear. My sister tried to argue that family members help each other, that money shouldn't come with conditions or strings attached. I agreed completely, which was why I'd never asked them to sign promissory notes or pay me back. But I also pointed out that respect and basic human decency shouldn't come with conditions either. My brother attempted to minimize the birthday incident, calling it harmless fun that got out of hand. He suggested we were all adults who should be able to move past a simple misunderstanding. I asked him how he'd feel if I'd organized a public humiliation for his birthday, complete with a cake mocking his biggest insecurity while everyone he loved laughed at his expense. The conversation ended with ultimatums and threats. My mother warned that I was destroying our family over money. My sister said I was proving their joke right by acting like a disappointment. My brother stormed out, claiming he'd never ask me for anything again. Their anger revealed the truth they'd been hiding behind fake apologies. They weren't sorry for hurting me. They were sorry for losing their ATM. Over the following months, I watched my family's financial house of cards collapse without my support. My mother had to sell her house and move into a small apartment. My sister took a second job to cover expenses she'd relied on me to handle. My brother declared bankruptcy, unable to manage his debt without my safety net. Part of me felt guilty watching their struggles, but I reminded myself that these were natural consequences of their choices. They'd lived beyond their means for years, comfortable in the knowledge that I'd always rescue them. The birthday cake was just the final insult that made me realize they didn't see me as family. They saw me as a resource to be exploited and mocked. Update 1. 6 months after my financial intervention, my family's situation had stabilized somewhat, but their attitudes hadn't improved. My mother found part-time work at a retail store, something she claimed was beneath her dignity, but necessity had made unavoidable. She blamed me for her circumstances, telling relatives that her ungrateful son had abandoned her over a harmless birthday prank. My sister's daughters began asking why Uncle didn't come around anymore, and she told them I'd chosen money over family. The narrative she created painted me as a selfish monster who'd cut them off for no reason, conveniently omitting the years of financial abuse and the humiliating birthday celebration that broke the camel's back. The extended family began taking sides. Cousins and aunts who'd heard my family's version of events started treating me differently at gatherings. Some approached me with concern, asking if I was going through some kind of mental health crisis that made me abandon my family. Others simply avoided me, apparently convinced I'd become cruel and money-obsessed. I decided it was time to tell my side of the story. At my nephew's graduation party, when my sister made another passive-aggressive comment about family loyalty, I finally spoke up. I pulled out my phone and showed the birthday cake photos to the relatives who'd been giving me dirty looks all evening. The room went silent as they processed the images. My sister tried to laugh it off, claiming it was just family humor that I'd taken too seriously. But my aunt, who'd raised 3 overweight children herself, understood immediately why the cake had been so devastating. She asked my sister how she'd thought that kind of public humiliation was acceptable. I explained the financial dynamic they'd all witnessed but never questioned. How I'd supported my immediate family for years while they treated me like a walking joke. How the birthday incident wasn't an isolated event, but the culmination of years of disrespect from people who saw me as nothing more than a bank account with legs. Update 2. The family revelation at my nephew's graduation created a permanent rift. Half the extended family understood my position and began questioning why they'd judged me so harshly. The other half doubled down, accusing me of airing dirty laundry and destroying family unity over money. My mother made one final attempt at reconciliation, showing up at my apartment with tears and promises that things would be different. She claimed to understand now how much I'd sacrificed for them and how poorly they'd treated me in return. She swore the birthday cake had been my sister's idea and that she'd only laughed because she was caught off guard. I listened to her apology, which seemed genuine for the first time in months. But when she finished her speech, she immediately asked if I could help with her electric bill, which was past due. The request revealed that nothing had actually changed. She was still the same person who saw our relationship in purely transactional terms. I told her I loved her, but couldn't trust her anymore. The birthday humiliation had shown me how she really felt about me, and her financial request proved she still saw me as a resource rather than a son. I wished her well, but explained that our relationship needed to be rebuilt from scratch, without money involved. 2 years have passed since that birthday party, and I've never been happier. I lost my family, but I gained my self-respect. I used the money I'd been giving them to pay off my mortgage early and start a small investment portfolio. I joined a gym, lost 50 pounds, and started dating for the first time in years. My family occasionally reaches out during holidays or emergencies, but I maintain firm boundaries. I send birthday cards and attend major events when invited, but I don't provide financial support or emotional labor anymore. They've learned to solve their own problems, which has made them more resilient and independent. The cake photos still sit in my phone, a reminder of the night I finally stood up for myself. Sometimes I wonder if I overreacted, but then I remember the sound of their laughter and the look in my mother's eyes as she joined in mocking her own son. That memory reminds me that some betrayals are too deep to forgive, even when they come from family. I've learned that being alone is better than being surrounded by people who don't respect you. The silence in my apartment is more peaceful than their laughter ever was, and my bank account balance brings me more satisfaction than their gratitude ever did. They wanted to celebrate me reaching 300 pounds, but what they actually helped me reach was the realization that I deserved better than what they were offering.